Imagine a place that shouldn't exist, a hidden town, completely absent from any map, constructed in secret beneath the watchful eyes of wartime authorities. Now imagine that this town, with its winding paths, primitive shelters, and communal kitchens, wasn't the work of rebels or outlaws, but the bold creation of a man the world had marked as an enemy. This wasn't a fantasy or a rumor whispered through the fog of war. It was real. During the darkest days of World War II, when humanity was being tested to its breaking point, one German prisoner of war dared to create something miraculous, a thriving, secret settlement within the very borders of captivity. He built it not from privilege, but from scraps of hope and stolen moments. Every stone, every timber, and every hidden tunnel became an act of rebellion, a statement that even behind barbed wire, the human spirit could still build, dream, and defy. This story, buried for decades beneath layers of silence, stands as one of history's most astonishing paradoxes. A man denied freedom, who created a world freer than any around him. It's a tale not just of escape, but of imagination, resilience, and the unyielding need to reclaim humanity amid war's brutal machinery. As we journey into this forgotten corner of history, we confront a question that defies logic. How could a prisoner surrounded by guards and fences construct not just a shelter but an entire town, a living, breathing microcosm of civilization, right under his captors' noses? Our story begins in a place meant to erase individuality, a POW camp surrounded by cold wire, watchtowers, and endless routine. Here, men were stripped of rank, title, and identity, reduced to numbers on a roll call sheet. Among them was a man whose name history barely records, yet whose imagination would make him legendary. The man who would later be called the architect of necessity. Before the war, he might have been a builder, an engineer, or perhaps simply a man fascinated by the logic of structure and form. But captivity changed everything. Deprived of liberty and forced into grueling monotony, he began to see the camp differently. To others, the fences meant imprisonment. To him, they became boundaries to be outsmarted. The soil beneath the camp, damp, rich, and hidden, became his canvas. He studied the patterns of the guards' shifts, the blind spots in their patrols, and the forgotten terrain stretching beyond the compound. The idea didn't come as a grand revelation, but as a whisper of rebellion, a thought that refused to die. What if, instead of trying to escape the camp altogether, he could build a life within it? Not a mere hideout, but a secret world that mirrored civilization itself. His vision was not escape through flight, but through creation. It was a silent revolution against the despair that consumed his fellow prisoners, a declaration that even inside confinement, humanity could still express itself through ingenuity, labor, and unity. Thus began one of the strangest and most courageous experiments in wartime history. The architect's first challenge was concealment. Under constant surveillance, even lifting a shovel could draw suspicion. Yet, where others saw danger, he saw opportunity in the camp's vast, untamed surroundings. Many POW camps were built near forests, ravines, or old quarries, areas deemed too rugged or unimportant for heavy patrol. He identified these forgotten places as perfect ground for his project. With astonishing patience, he began digging, using smuggled or improvised tools. A flattened tin can here, a broken piece of metal there. Each movement was calculated. Each sound masked by the natural rhythm of the camp, the creak of a wind-blown fence, the rumble of transport trucks, the distant clang of tools. The first structures were small, shallow dugouts reinforced with logs scavenged from firewood piles, roofs made from woven branches, and walls camouflaged with moss and mud. He learned to mimic nature, to make human construction look like untouched earth. To succeed, he needed allies. Slowly, through quiet conversations and silent nods, he built a circle of trusted men, fellow prisoners desperate for purpose. Some brought skills, carpenters, masons, tailors. Others simply brought faith. They smuggled nails, wire, and cloth from the camp workshops, trading them with sympathetic guards or bartering with other labor groups. A secret network emerged, hidden beneath the official routines. It was a silent conspiracy, built not on escape plans, but on creation. Together they built the bones of a secret town, a fragile, defiant civilization, taking shape in the shadows of war. Weeks turned into months, and what began as a collection of dugouts evolved into a functioning secret settlement. Beneath the canopy of trees or tucked behind natural ridges, small shelters appeared, crude yet remarkable for their craftsmanship. They shared meals cooked in hidden fire pits, their smoke carefully filtered through layered branches to avoid detection. They built drainage trenches to keep the interiors dry and carved primitive ventilation shafts that doubled as escape hatches. But what truly defined this hidden town wasn't its architecture, it was its spirit. Inside this clandestine community, the prisoners rediscovered something war had taken from them: dignity. They formed quiet councils to distribute labor, maintain secrecy, and protect each other. There were no ranks here, no officers, no hierarchy. Survival demanded equality. They celebrated small victories, a warm meal, a repaired roof, a night without discovery, as triumphs greater than any military medal. Each man carried the weight of silence, knowing that one careless word or misplaced footprint could doom them all. Yet that danger gave their lives meaning. Within those earthen walls, laughter returned, stories were shared, and songs, forbidden in the camp, once again filled the air in whispers. The hidden town became more than shelter. It was a rebellion of the soul. For the first time since capture, they were no longer mere prisoners. They were creators, builders, and brothers bound by purpose. Their lives in the shadows stood as proof that even when stripped of everything, the human heart can still find ways to build light in darkness. But even the most well-guarded secrets are fragile. The discovery of the hidden town came not from betrayal, but from accident. A drifting trail of smoke, a footprint in soft soil, or perhaps the careless echo of laughter carried on the wind. One morning, patrols stumbled upon what at first looked like a natural clearing. What they found instead stunned them, a complex of earthen shelters, fire pits, tools, and traces of daily life. The camp authorities were furious. To them, this wasn't mere disobedience, it was rebellion, an act that mocked their control. Guards stormed the site, tearing down the structures, confiscating tools, and rounding up the men. Yet even in their anger, some couldn't hide their astonishment. This was no crude hideout. It was an organized settlement, built with precision and care. The architect, now exposed, faced the full weight of punishment. Some accounts suggest he was beaten, isolated, or transferred to a harsher camp. Others hint at a quieter, stranger outcome, that certain officers, impressed by his skill, secretly protected him or even assigned him to engineering duties within the prison network. The truth remains uncertain, lost among conflicting testimonies and fading records. But one fact is undeniable. The secret town was destroyed. Its remains were buried or burned, its creators dispersed back into the faceless mass of prisoners. Yet even in its destruction, the town achieved immortality, a fleeting, brilliant act of defiance that would outlive both captors and captives. Years after the war ended, the story of the German POW who built a secret town survived in whispers and fragments. Local villagers spoke of strange ruins found in the woods, of half-buried cellars and faded foundations that seemed too deliberate to be natural. Military historians dismissed it as legend, yet bits of evidence, unearthed decades later, suggested otherwise. What remained wasn't just physical, it was philosophical. The architect's vision had transcended his captivity, becoming a timeless symbol of resilience. In a world designed to crush identity and spirit, he had proved that freedom is not a place, but an act. The decision to create meaning, even where none exists. His secret town represented something profoundly human, the instinct to build, to organize, and to preserve dignity in the face of annihilation. Though no map records its name and no monument marks its site, its legacy endures in every story of human defiance, in every corner of history where people refuse to surrender to despair. His creation was not merely a town, it was an idea, one that survives wherever people resist oppression, not with violence, but with vision. In the end, the camp vanished, the war ended, and the barbed wire rusted away. But somewhere, perhaps beneath layers of forgotten earth, the faint outline of his hidden world still whispers the truth, that no prison can ever contain the boundless architecture of the human spirit. And so, as the last echoes of this story fade into the silence of history, a question remains. How many other hidden worlds like this one lie buried beneath time, built in secret, born from desperation, and forgotten by all but memory. Perhaps under the moss of forgotten forests or deep in the ruins of old camps, fragments of human defiance still endure, waiting for discovery. The tale of the architect of necessity forces us to look beyond official records and monuments, to see history not as a collection of wars and empires, but as countless small acts of survival, private revolutions carried out by ordinary people under impossible conditions. His story is not simply about architecture or defiance. It is about what makes us human. Behind walls, in darkness, under threat of death, he and his companions built something no army could destroy: hope. Their world may have been small and fleeting, but it revealed a universal truth, that even when stripped of everything, humans will always build, not just for shelter, but for meaning. In the quiet soil where that hidden town once stood, nature has reclaimed its space. But if you listen closely, you can still hear the faint heartbeat of that impossible dream, a whisper from the past, reminding us that even captivity cannot imprison creation itself. Subscribe for more forgotten stories of war and resilience, where innovation, courage, and destiny collide in the frozen silence of history.